First, generally, how well do you write with big expanses of time? Are you a better creator under deadline, or are you the kind of person that can work well with, let's say, 6 months? And I ask that as songwriters because, there's no touring involved, obviously, for who knows how long. So how well do you write with a big expanse of time versus a deadline?
I'm able to do both. I write constantly for the guitar for song. I write songs constantly. There are always um, works in progress, whether needing lyrics or chord progressions or something that I can always dive into. And I don't have deadlines. It's not my
Yeah.
livelihood. Um, but as a playwright, I work best under a deadline. In the old at the Purple Rose Theater Company, I've written 18 plays for them over the 30 years, and often I would go, "What do you need?" And they would say, "We could really use a comedy in the fall to balance out the season." And this, okay, good. That's 8 months from now. So when do you need it? Well, first draft, April 1st would be great. And, that gives you the summer to work on it. And then, okay, April 1st. And then I sit down.
So yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I can do that. And that's out of a necessity. And I've gotten good at playwriting so that I know what's bad and I can get rid of that more quickly than I used to be able to. I'm a better editor in my head now. So my third draft is really like my fifth draft. And we usually aren't changing very much by the time we get to that one. I mean, then we'll go in and find things, and then draft 6 and 7, which is in rehearsals, it will shape. But 5 of the drafts have already been done before anybody's really seen it.
When you say better,
you have to show the first draft to the artistic director, and it's just torture because you go in thinking, gee, I hope he loves it. And they always go, "This is really great. We have work to do." And it's just such a deflation that I stopped giving him the first draft and the second. And he was right. I mean, it was just, okay, now why don't you organize it and get rid of the shit that you don't need, which is what the second draft is. And then the third draft is the story appears and you shape it. And now you can turn it into kind of, all right, now we can start. Fourth draft is when you can start. And like I said, that's gotten, we do less and less now than we used to do. With songs, I don't have deadlines. My deadlines are my own. The deadline is when the song's done.
Yeah.
When the song is, when you've given up on that second verse and there it is. I found it. There it is. God, why didn't I think of that before? Boom, click, in it goes. Into the notebook it goes. And sometimes they're just headed for the notebook. That's it. It's like the personal diary. It's you got to write this one to get to the next one. Get it out of you.
Yeah.
One's going to want to listen to it. It's too personal. It's too angry. It's too out there. But you got it out of your system. And then there are others that you go, oh no, I could play this out. I could sit, in a venue and this could make the set list. And those get more exciting because they have a longer life, they have more possibilities. And like Paris Moon. Paris Moon's a song that I wrote that really became something special. I was in Paris and I was doing promotion for Looming Tower, the Hulu show. And I was sitting in the hotel room looking out the back window of a rear hotel room down into an alley at 3 a.m, because it's really 10 at night for me, but it's 3 a.m. in Paris. And I just see this dark alley and there's a light on what might be a cafe or a bar, and an alley and a street light. It rained, streets are wet, and then you see F. Scott Fitzgerald sitting in the corner writing. And that's the inciting incident, as they say in screenwriting. And in you go. And then you chase it, and you sit there in front of that window at 3 a.m. with a guitar that the hotel was kind enough to put in the room for you. And you write some of Paris Moon, and then you got it. It's like catching lightning. And it took a couple of weeks because I had to look up a whole bunch of people, but that one became this kind of all these people: Van Gogh, Renoir, Charles Baudelaire, Claudine Lauget, Catherine Deneuve, Picasso, Monet, Hemingway. They were all in the cafe at the same time. And so that became the song. And then rhyming all of that and making it, those are the special ones that as you're writing it. Yeah, this probably won't go very well after a funny song like, Have a Good Life Then Die about road rage. But in the right place, it pulls people into a world, and which is what songs can do, plays can do, art can do at its best. It pulls you out of yourself and into their world. And maybe if we're lucky, we illuminate life for the both of us. That seems to be what art does in whatever form. And
a couple follow-ups. One is, I guess, when you wrote that song, the further you got from it chronologically, was it harder to kind of get back into that moment? Because
no, I had the bones of it. That's kind of what I do, is that sometimes, that inspiration, that idea is there, and you have a chord progression, which may work, may not, and picking riff, something, there it is. You just get the verse. Oh, a second verse. Okay. Make sure, is there the hook? Where's the chorus? Is this the chorus? You think it is? Great. Now you're not going to lose it. It's hard for me to just do 2 lines or a hook and play that over and over and over and wait for something. It's got to go. And I think being an actor and playwright and has opened up that kind of free fall, that get it out. It really is a free for all. I mean, actors have a thing called fire the judge, which is that voice on your shoulder going, that's not good enough. No, you need to change that. No, you need to change that. You need to all in, garbage in. And you get better at what the quality of the garbage, that going in, those first efforts, even before I write it down or type it in, it's no, not that. We know that. Maybe 20 years ago, that would have been something that might have even stayed in, but now it's nope. Yes, there it is. You keep chasing it. It's a forward thing. Once you get the idea, Lanford told me, he was a mentor. Lanford told me, if you want to be a writer, and I, was chirping that I wanted to be one. He goes, fine. If you want to be a writer, you need to keep your radar on 24/7. We're always listening. We're always stealing from someone. Somebody says something. A friend of mine said, well, it's a good life. Somebody's got to live it. Grab it, put it away, steal it. That's what actors do. They watch other actors to steal. How did she do that? How did Meryl what did she just do there? And you rewind it and you go, oh, okay. Boy, that's like juggling 5 balls in the air at the same time, but she did it. But it's the same thing with somebody, people, they have unique ways of saying things sometimes. And if you can avoid the cliches and find those things where somebody, grandfather's hat was one that always lands. And I was wearing this fedora because I just like them, and I was at a hockey game, one of my boys' hockey games when they were a lot younger. And guy walked up to me and I'd known him in town for decades. And he goes, is that your grandfather's hat? Serious question. And I no, I just like him. And I watched the hockey game and I go, yeah, maybe it is. And then you write that song and it becomes a song that other people say, my aunt's necklace, my mother's ring, my father's wristwatch. And then you know it landed. Then you know it's not just yours.
I just read an article last week in the Washington Post. Peter Marks, the theater critic, talked about how King Lear was written during the plague.
I read
And
that.
yeah, and I thought about that a lot because I'd done so many of these interviews since March. And I think I remember on Twitter, people talking at first about how many great songs are going to come out of this whole thing, the pandemic, talking about the pandemic. Um, but I haven't heard many songwriters tell me that this has been a prolific time for them, that they've really struggled with writing because of just how overwhelmed they are emotionally. And so I've heard the exact opposite from them. So I guess, yeah, what do you think about that? I mean, I guess from a songwriting perspective, artistic perspective, do you think that is the case? Is it easy or more difficult to write in times in heavy times or emotional times in general?
There are probably a lot of bad songs being written during the pandemic about the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's what you don't want to do. And that's what it feels like. This idea I have is it's not unique. It's not special. What's the bigger picture is what you got to aim at, I think. I got two of them on this new album. And one of them was Trumpty Dumpty Blues, which I wrote in April, a month into the pandemic, being told that, we can't wait for Easter. And I just didn't buy any of it. And that's how I get it out. I'm too famous to go on Twitter and start railing at people.
Right.
It's just a dead end. Don't stir up the trolls. And I think art can be a weapon. And that's where it kind of clicked for me. It wasn't about woe is us and gee, we're all so alone. No, let's attack something. I wrote Trumpty Dumpty Blues was written in April. I just had to get it out. And I knew I probably couldn't play it, And then I did Comey Rule, which was on Showtime, and
Yeah.
it was going to air the end of September. And about August, we started to be, the PR people were going, well, what do you, Trump's, we got to be careful of Trump. He might hate tweet the show and he might hate tweet us. So you need to be prepared and you need to take the high road. You need to, okay, shut up. Why don't we record Trumpty Dumpty Blues in August, which we did. And then let's make a video of it in mid-September and just put it in our back pocket. And let Comey Rule air the end of September and wait. See what he does. Hollywood Reporter talked to me with interviews for the Comey Rule, and they asked, do you have a response if he hate tweets you? I said, yes, I do, and it will be instantaneous.
That's true. Wait, is the video out?
Yes. So what happened was Comey Air ruled.
Yeah.
And we're all waiting for Trump to, watch it or hate tweet it or he did nothing. He did nothing, which was disappointing. It's not everybody that gets hate tweeted by the president, but oh well, can't have everything. And then about Wednesday after that Sunday, Monday airing, Wednesday, Jim Comey got hauled in front of Lindsey Graham and the Senate Judiciary Committee so Lindsey Graham could do a political grandstand and shit on Comey again and try to get reelected in South Carolina. That's all that was. And Trump hate tweeted Comey that day. I said, there it is, launch. And, for us, it took off. It just took off. We had I'm going to guess 200,000 views or something, which, not bad.
Yeah.
But it was stepping out. It was an answer. It was a right hook.
Yeah.
Back to the
perfect
guy.
timing.
Quit placating him and quit enabling him and being complicit and going, gee, he said something. Fuck you. Right back at him.
Yeah.
And so that happened. The other song on the album is called I Am America. And that came from a chord progression. And I had read Isabel Wilkerson's book, Caste, which I think should be required reading for every white American. And I learned a lot. And I wrote this song about unification, how we need to come together. But I wrote it for a Black singer. And we got Thornetta Davis, who is this award-winning blues singer out of Detroit. And it becomes like a prayer for her, a plea to America to, give me my freedom. I will rise up, I will rejoice when you can hear my American voice. And so I'm proud of that one. It speaks to the time we're living in and the time we're going to be living in. That one has legs, I think. And Thornetta's performance in it was just all and more. So can you write during times of crisis like these? Yes, but I found success following people like the guys I mentioned who are trying to right a wrong or shine light on something that needs to be changed. Write those songs. We need those.
Yeah. And you mentioned Hemingway, and it reminds me of something, and this is, I think, a little bit what we're talking about here. Hemingway once said, I think it was, he could never write about Paris when he was in Paris. He could never write about Spain when he was in Spain. He needed distance. And I'm curious how you feel about that. Let's talk about that from any perspective, playwriting, songwriting. Can you write about an emotion or a place or a thing, or, right in the midst of that thing or right after the thing, or do you need distance from it to kind of give you a better perspective?
I think the better perspective comes with the distance. I certainly wouldn't stop writing if I were in the middle of somewhere and something and was feeling it. I would write till I couldn't write anymore and then go back and look at it. Yeah. That's where the imagination comes in, which should be given free rein, should have as much value as whatever literary, whatever writing thing you're trying to do, phrasing, and I need that better rhyme and other techniques of writing, or factually, this is what happened and this is what I saw and this is what I felt. Great, that's terrific. Now let's do more with it. Now let your imagination go with it. I'm always the playwriting has really taught me a lot about songwriting and vice versa. But it's like getting to that place where the imagination can take over, because that's the only thing that makes you different from everybody else, is your particular point of view on whatever it is you're writing about.
Yeah.
That's why people like Prine, these are the guys that hit me. Arlo was first. Arlo Guthrie was first. Early 70s. Had not ever heard anybody like him. And I was ignorant of Woody and Jack Elliott and all those guys. I didn't know anything about them. Here's Arlo Guthrie singing about marijuana and Alice's Restaurant. And I'm in like 8th grade. And Stevie Goodman. And then later on, Elton John. But it was Elton because of the piano, but it was Bernie Taupin, that Tumbleweed Connection album, going, what are these guys doing? Nobody else is writing like this. And I didn't even know it was writing. It was just different. And later on, perspective, it's the writing. It's the writing, it's the writing, it's the writing. And that led to guys like Prine. And then later on, Lyle Lovett, John Hyatt. But Christine Lavin and Stevie Goodman showed me that it's okay to be funny as long as it's true. Laurie McKenna does a great job of writing that little corner of the life that she's got going, the family and the small town and all that. She's got that nailed. Lately, Jason Isbell, Daryl Scott, Chris Stapleton, Sturgill, Simpson, guys that are breaking rules, pushing it,
Definitely Sturgill for sure.
In corporate country, I'm interested in guys breaking through and sounding like nobody else. I mean, those first 2 albums Jason Isbell put out alone were like, that's what you aim at. That's what other writers aim at, what he did right there.
You mentioned comedy, and I just had read this. The book that won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, I think, in 18 or 19, was a book called Less, and the author's last name is Greer, and it's kind of like an updated Confederacy of Dunces, and it's about this like middle-aged college professor, English professor, goes on this like ill-fated international book tour, and it's hilarious. I mean, it's a comedy, and I think someone mentioned, when's the last time a comedy book has won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction? I don't know the answer to that, but it's been who knows how long. So that got me thinking about it. I mean, you talked about, just comedic performances as well, that in books, that, in fiction,
I do. I think I got that book and I started it and I put it down. I got to pick it up again.
That's great.
I will. You know what it is? Comedy, what drama is, drama is Marlon Brando falling to his knees going, Stella. And comedy is him falling to his knees and going, ouch.
Right.
It's the joke that covers the truth. And if something is covering up the truth, then it is less.
Yeah.
The cop out. So I get it. I just know that technically, you can write a serious song, or you can be in a movie, and it's the same thing. And you can look off into the sunset and hold for 15 seconds of silence on a movie set, knowing that they're going to put an orchestra underneath you that's going to make them cry. And all you have to do is sit there and go, 2 + 3 is 5, +2 is 7, -3 is 4. Cut it. Okay, good. But comedy, you've got to look off into that sunset and be funny. And that's a smaller target.
Yeah.
Same thing with songs. It's just a smaller target, which makes it more of a challenge.
Yeah. At the beginning, you said you become a better editor, and I want to follow up with you and ask what you meant by that. Talking about, I think you were mentioning when it comes to writing plays, but I'm curious, how, I'm a writer too, and so I can think about how to become a better editor over time. But what's your take? What have you become better at as far as the editing process?
As you're writing early, whether it's early on a song, early in a play, it's just go. Don't judge. Or before I judge, and I'd hold back, and I'd go, no, I want to pick away at this half page for 4 hours. No, go. Because in just going, you might get somewhere that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. It happens on movie sets too. It all fucking connects. You do a take. You're in the middle of a take, and it's a 2-minute long take. And about a minute in, you flub a line, and you go, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry. I got to start again." And you don't, because they're going to cut that out anyway. They may not even use this take at all. Keep going. So I had to learn over years of fumbling through, I screwed something up, and then use wherever you come out the other end of that, go in that direction and chase that. And even on film, it's take 3. You really went off somewhere, did it differently than we rehearsed, right? Yeah, I know. And you throw it away. Or they call it happy accidents on movie sets. Somebody blows a line, somebody ad-libs something, you're back on, and they go, that was better than what we wrote. So if you allow yourself, if you trust that it's okay to pitch something, and then see where that goes. And it's trying to describe something that's kind of a fluid thing. But you get less critical. The less critical you are early on, the more you find, the more you discover. And that's the thrill of all of this, is being open enough and getting smart enough with, no, we know you've done that 3 plays ago, or you already wrote a song about that. Those are easy edits and kills. But it's this kind of being open to something new that you didn't outline, that you didn't plan, that you didn't think you were writing about this. Elmore Leonard said, I'll get this wrong, but they asked him if he outlined his books, and he said, he may have said somewhat. I know he did research. but he also said, no, I write to find out what happens. And that's that whole discovery. That's where the fun is. That's where the fun is. And that's when you hear songwriters talk about, I'm in the zone and the words just came and this phrase just came, and you got to be open. You got to be vulnerable. You got to fire the judge, and you got to receive it. And sometimes the magic happens and it comes, and there's that phrase, there's that idea that wouldn't have come if today it was time to sit down at 9 a.m. and write 3 songs.
Yeah. That's a segue into my next question then, because I'm fascinated by the rituals of writers. Time of day, place, things you have to have with you, stuff like that. How important is that to you? Is there a favorite room, time of day, place? I'm very interested in the rituals of writers, really, of any genre. So do you have an ideal place or time, anything like that, where you get your best writing done?
Predominantly it's been the porch.
Yeah.
The porch. If I've started something and I want to really get deeper into it or finish it, I'll go to the porch and sit there on the glider, which is great when the weather's great. When it isn't, we have a studio here that I'll go upstairs. I have all the guitars hanging up there, so I'll just go into the cave. And but Lanford's right. You can write anywhere, and you carry it around with you anywhere. And that second verse just doesn't work. And you drive into town to get your meds, and on the way in, you think of something, or like you get on the stationary bike. It always happens. And that lyric that just isn't right, and then you're 10 minutes into it, and you go, there it is. Gary Ross wrote and directed Pleasantville, a movie I did, and
yeah.
Gary said he used to just drive around in his car, the white noise of the car. That never worked for me, but just staying open, and it just might come. It might not, but it's I've had success where if I just let it stew for a while and let the subconscious kind of work on it while I go about my life, and then when I revisit it, suddenly there's something different there, or a different direction to take with it. And sometimes it's just being patient. So I've written on planes. You know, it's a good way to kill the Detroit to LA trip is to finish that song or write that play.
Yeah.
I'll just sitting there pounding away. I was hardly a party animal in Hollywood. So I would work the movie Monday through Friday and then have the weekend off, and I would just stay in the hotel room and rewrite the second act of a play. That's what I did.
But don't you find having those places, at least for me, I find that when I'm in a rut, there are certain places I go, like, you know, you talk about the glider on the porch, where from a confidence perspective, if it's happened there before, do you find that those places, it helps to have a place like that where you feel like it's happened here before? You know, for me, at least, there's certain chairs I sit in that I feel like they're better than others. And maybe that's superstition, but it's also confidence though, isn't it?
Yeah. When it's time to go, when you're the deadline, like with a play in particular, I'll play more. So I'll have a place. I'll have this chair, this desk, this home office, and I need to turn it in by Friday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And today's Tuesday, you know? And so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if I'm home in Michigan, this is the week to finish that draft so you can turn it in. Mm-hmm. And I Stephen King calls it chain yourself to the chair. And so I took that seriously. And that's, if there's one place I do something, it's doing that here. Songs, if I'm stuck and if I'm not writing and don't have ideas and wish I did, and I do a lot of Stefan Grossman's guitar videos and Happy Tram, Homespun tapes, his videos. I'll just try to get better at the guitar. And by going into that and getting better and finding a new lick or something, it triggers. That's always been a good trigger for me. Well, then don't write. If you can't write, don't write. Get better at the guitar. Oh, Now there's a new thing you're doing and suddenly a door opens, and that usually works. That usually works.
So a lot of songwriters have told me about the role of motion in the songwriting process, and quite literally activities they do. And I interviewed Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam a couple months ago, and he has this whole theory about cadence, how going on walks and the cadence tends to have a big impact on the songwriting process. And I've heard so many songwriters talk about swimming. So many have gotten songs through swimming, gardening, something about repetitive motion. That's been a constant theme, whether it's walking, even the bike. But Stone Gossard, I go back to my website, his whole thing about cadence and things like that. But I'm curious if that's, maybe that's what the glider does. And you talk about the stationary bike too. Any of that kind of.
The glider doesn't do that because I just don't do it. But he's right. I agree with him on the biking. And all summer we would bike on these gravel roads. We would go out for an hour and come back on a big loop. And I can think of a couple of songs where I came back with 2 verses. And you're just out there, and you're halfway there, and you got another half hour to go, and there it is. And now it's, please God, let me remember it. And so you just start repeating it. So for the next, mile, you're just repeating it to get it into your brain, so that God forbid you get back home and you can't remember a word of it.
There's a great book called The Friendship by Adam Sisman, and it's about the friendship between Wordsworth and Coleridge, the Romantic poets. And they often walked up to 30 miles a day because, what else is there to do? And Wordsworth composed almost all of his poems on walks. And he had such a fantastic memory that he would revise them in his head, and he wouldn't come home until they were finished. So you have that should be like your what to aim for. But he'd go out the entire day, compose them all in his head. So
I'm sure there's something physiological to that, and that.
Oh yeah.
But I wonder if it's also, you're moving forward, you're going towards something. I mean, you may be walking around a lake in a big circle, but you're going towards something. And so is the writer with this song, with this play.
So the one question that seems to be songwriters are very particular about when they write lyrics, are they using pen and paper or computer? So that's my first question. When you write, are you a computer person or a pen and paper person?
For years, I was legal pad with a Sharpie. And I would just big print and go through 30 pages to get 2 verses and cross outs and boom, 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 and just go. And now it's an iPad.
What about the Notes app on your phone? That's a preferred place for songwriters to keep ideas and riffs and stuff like that. Is the Notes app heavily used?
Voice memos is used more, where you'll get that chord progression or that whatever it is, picking pattern, and you're going to forget it if you don't record this 30-second version. I do that a lot more than I have a thing on the notepad for lines, song ideas, lines, what can be for songs or plays. And if I hear somebody say something, I'll just pull it and throw it in there. I probably haven't looked at it. And
that's so.
It annoys me because I keep putting things in there like, oh, you're going to need this later. And then I will write whole plays and never open it up.
So I interviewed Brian Fallon from the Gaslight Anthem and Tracy Guns from the band LA Guns together. And this is a couple months ago. Brian Fallon told me exactly what you said. He said, if any songwriter ever tells you they go back to those notes, they're lying. He goes, all of us have those notes. We never go back to them. And if they say they do, don't believe them. Last question. We talked about reading a little bit, but I always like to end with kind of who do you like, who are some of your go-to authors, playwrights, novelists, anything like that? Who do you like to read? What books have you read recently? Let's talk reading.
I'd have to get the Kindle out because, right now, Don DeLillo. I've always liked Don. T.C. Boyle. I think I've read almost everything of T.C.'s. I've been reading a lot of political books over the last year and a half. I think I've read most all of them. fiction, not as much fiction right now. It's mostly been things like Stuart Stevens, It's All a Lie, the Republican Party's descent into hell.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a better understanding of what the hell's going on around me. So I've really kind of done a deep dive into all those, not all of them. I didn't read Michael Cohen's, or I read Mary Trump's. That's been the reading right now. My wife reads a lot more fiction than I do. It's hard for me to read fiction, just like it's hard to watch a movie. I can see under the hood,
Yeah.
and so it just gets a little, as a writer, you can see the mechanics of it, which is fine. Every story needs structure, but it's I work in fiction. I work in fantasy, so it's I'll read guys to just the flow of the sentences and the rhythm and the cadence and the doing Aaron Sorkin for Newsroom for those 3 years was, you could just feel how, and all the great writers have this. This goes back to Shakespeare, David Mamet with his commas and staccatos. Yeah. There was the iambic pentameter. There is a rhythm, and I think that I've noticed with actors that it's easier to memorize lines if you're musical. You can get and if the writer writes with a rhythm, and Sorkin does. I had Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. I had a line, and these are the lines that you just lay out on a table in front of the audience. And Atticus is sitting on the porch with his daughter Scout, and she's asking him about why people are screaming and the mobs and all that. And he said, well, a mob's a place where people go to take a break from their conscience. And you could just hear the dun. And I would just lay that out, and I'd get to conscience, and you would hear often an audible, people receiving that.
Yeah.
And that's Sorkin. That's knowing what to do and also what not to do, which is to just sometimes, I would bet even with a song, if you've got that great lyric, that great line, just lay it out for them, put it in front of them, give it to them, and versus let me do something with it, but the great writers have rhythm and have a cadence, and that goes way back. So that's, and sometimes I'll read fiction or something just to the guys that are really good at just the flow, Richard Ford, he's another one.
Yeah, he comes up, the fiction writers that come up most often with songwriters are Cormac McCarthy, Bukowski a little bit, but Cormac McCarthy and Vonnegut seem to be the two that come up the most, I think, with songwriters, just because of the economy of language. Murakami has been cited a lot, but I'd say by far Vonnegut and McCarthy, and I feel like I'm missing one more, but it's certainly those two.
I still go back to rhythm, though.
Yeah.
Writers with a Hemingway. I mean, maybe I don't know enough about Hemingway, but he was so simple, and so, I don't think he believed in adjectives or adverbs,
Right.
And so but is there a flow? Yes, but Patty Chayefsky, is another writer. It's like writing secretariat, that's what it felt like doing Sorkin and To Kill a Mockingbird, or that Northwestern speech. You're riding a great horse.
Yeah.
And good writing allows you to do that, whether it's a play or a song, if you get that line, even if it's not so simple. But it also, I enjoy the wordsmithing. You get that line, that great lyric that's one syllable too long, and you spend a day trying to write around it and find that line where it isn't one syllable too long, or the phrase that eliminates that one syllable. I enjoy doing that. I don't enjoy it. I hate it, actually, but it's that's part of the challenge is you run up on a really good line that you don't want to just pitch and try to find something else. You try to make this one line work and it's one syllable too long. That's fun.
So what do you do in that situation? Do you, there's probably a word there that you're not willing to part with in that line, right? So maybe can you think of is there an example of when that's happened where you've got that great line? How have you solved it?
I can't remember an example, but I do, sometimes, and the playwriting taught me this, you might want to pitch the whole thing, pitch the whole line. It's not working, pitch it.
Yeah.
Force yourself to come up with something completely different and better. Go. Just be tough on yourself. In writing, they call it killing your babies.
Yep.
And it's true. I early on in playwriting, I had one great joke, but it took me 2 pages to get to it. And the artistic director finally said, if we lost this joke, I said, yeah, you're probably right. It has a score every night. Good. That means we can cut these 2 pages. Boom. And it's gone. Well, what just happened?
Yeah.
And, forest for the trees and all that. I mean, sometimes it's easier just to force yourself to start over on that line and find something better. Go in a different direction.
Although I do find though, when I write, and I do a fair amount of freelance writing for the Washington Post, and I do find though that when my stuff gets cut the next day, I never remember even what they cut. Like I don't even remember. It wasn't that good. I never looked at it and said, oh God, I wish they kept that paragraph. I don't even remember it. And then I realized probably wasn't that good to begin with. So
yeah, I don't know how you do that. I'm not a big, I just turn it in and suddenly it comes back different. I'm not. This is why I enjoy what I do. I don't have to answer to anybody. I go out there in front of people or sit down to do an album, and I don't have a record company to answer to.
Yeah.
Nobody. It's just me. It's got to be good enough for me, and I'm tough on myself. And when I think I'm done with it, I'm done with it. I mean, I'm not Picasso, but I don't think Picasso had a bunch of people standing behind him saying, try the red.
Right.
And I've only kind of really experienced that when going from the New York theater, starting out again with Lanford. If you wanted to change a line or a word, you had to ask. Then you go to Hollywood and actors are rewriting things in their trailer and coming on going, I've made some changes. Yeah. And you're going, the respect for the writing is, and sometimes on big movies, it's written by a committee of 8 drafts of a screenplay that went through 3 screenwriters and a junior executive up in the tower of the studio who is basically justifying his presence as an executive producer by making them change that scene. It's just that's why you get on an Aaron Sorkin or a Noah Baumbach. Or back in the day, Woody Allen, this Scott Frank from Godless, who's got this great show on now on Netflix called Queen's Gambit that I'm watching. When you control it, when you're the only writer on it, it's a single voice, it's a singular voice, and it's your voice.
Yeah.
We don't want to hear anybody else's voice. We don't want to hear what you would sound like if you tried to be Keith Urban. We don't want that. We want what you have to say. Otherwise, stop writing. So go for that uniqueness is what that originality that lies only in you is what you're always searching for. And occasionally you hit it.